log into your home page on FieldOps, and if you want to start creating a prescription for a certain field, you have to have management zones made first. So in order to make management zones, you're going to come down into the setup, the little picture of the gear cog, and you're going to go to Fields, and you've got management zones. Now another way to make a management zone automatically is by adding a pivot, and that will make a dry land and irrigated management zone without you having to go in here to this tab and doing it manually. So just for an example here, I'll do this field. I'm going to go to pivots, and those are pivots that are made already on other fields, but I'm going to add a new one for this demo field. So hit the little plus in the bottom right. You have to name your pivots. You don't have to type in the latitude, longitude unless you know it, but I do need the radius. So for a regular quarter, we're going to be about 1,350 foot of radius that we're covering. And then down here in the little satellite map, you got to set the crosshairs on what would be the center point of the pivot there. So you can expand this window to make it a little bit easier to get dialed into close to where we want to be, and then minimize that again, and I'm going to get my crosshairs as close to the center point as possible. And I scroll down here, and then it needs to know if the rotation of the pivot is a full circle or if it's a windshield wiper or what, but this one's going all the way around, so I'm just going to say that it starts at 0 degrees, ends at 360. So then I can hit add and save, and that pivot should be created for this field. So once it's done loading, we should be able to visualize that on the map. So now I've got a red circle there. That is my pivot I just created. So that's representing the zone in the field that's under irrigation. So now that I have that in my management zones, it'll automatically let me make a prescription that I can type a rate into the dry land zones and the irrigation zone. So if I want to make the script off of this, I can go back to setup, fields, and then prescriptions, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the same process. Hit the little plus in the bottom right, and I'm gonna use existing zones. So it asks for a zone group, so I'm gonna name this, this is gonna be for 2025 plant, so it'll use this name, seasons 2025, and it's going to be we'll say it's a seeding script. The switch under here that says create activity, you can leave that on no. That's just if you want to have an actual schedule for when you're going to try and plan and do these operations. So just hit next, and it's going to ask you which field that you want to create the script for. So let's go ahead and select that. And then right here I've got my zone groups, and I automatically have irrigation zones. Now by default, if you make a boundary on FieldOps, it will also give you soil zones. So you can load those zones in and create them off soil zones automatically too. Any other management zones that you create by hand under the management zone tab will show up in this list. But since we made that pivot, we're just going to select irrigation zones, click on that, hit next, and then it's going to let us type in our seeding rates for the non-irrigated and the irrigated. So for non-irrigated, I'll just say that we're going to plant corn at 25,000 seeds. It's already in K seeds there, so just be aware that that's 25,000. So don't type in 25,000, just put 25. And under the irrigated, I'll do 33,000. So then you come down here, and it needs to know the crop and what product it is that we're planning on applying with this prescription. So I'll do corn, and if you have products made already, you can select them. I don't have any products made, so we'll just come in here and create one quick, and I'll just call it 1197. Say that that's my variety that I'm going to be planting. This is all other record keeping things for that particular hybrid or variety that you're going to put in here. I don't know those details, so I'm just going to hit save. And I got to put my crop in there. Corn. And then hit save, and it should be saved in my list, and I can select it. So my unit is in 1,000 seeds, and then you have these out of zone rates, loss of GPS, out of field. So you're going to want to put in whatever rate you want. If you happen to go, outside of this region, maybe you're outside of the script region but still inside of the boundary. Maybe you lose GPS but you want to keep going. It just needs to know what rate to use if any of those things happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 30 in all of them. Sometimes I like to do each one individual, like 30, 31, 32. That way if one of those does show up on my monitor, I know what's happening. Then at the bottom you have the prescription percentage adjust. We don't need to type anything in there on this screen. You will have the ability to adjust that when you put it in the display as well. If we get a bunch of rain in the spring and you decide that you want to apply more than 25,000 and 33,000, we can come in here and you can type in 110% and bump those rates up 10%. But when you're creating them, you're just going to want to put in your targets and leave that blank and hit finish. And it's going to start creating that prescription. Kind of gives you a status box here, depending on how detailed the prescription is, how many zones you have. It could take a little bit longer to create it. This one's pretty simple, so I'll just hit done. And by the time I go back out to view this field on the satellite map here, I might refresh the page and it should show up in my layers for 2025 all ready to go. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I go back out to my satellite view here and go to that field for 2025, and now it's showing an extra layer here, my prescription layer that I just made. So I can actually click on that, visualize it, double check that my rates are correct, and we're good to go. We can export that prescription to a memory card, or we can send it over the air to a connected tractor with a PCM.